The need for a new town hall, fire, and police station in Plainville was a growing problem. But as luck would have it, funding was found when Plainridge Park Casino moved into town. The day-to-day issues town employees had to deal with were finally resolved to the benefit of all who reside in Plainville.
We've had mold, we've had mice. The building roof was leaking, and at one point I had one of my employees holding an umbrella over my head as I was typing a marriage certificate.
I've had the sewer back up twice into my office. Right now we have heaters in here, and one of them is on hold right now. It goes outside, the cord runs out the window, opens up the tank outside. They put the heater in there to keep it going so everything keeps flowing out instead of backing up into my office. Yeah.
To say employees working out of the now former town hall were excited to move down the street would be putting it mildly. After having one of the worst town halls in the Commonwealth, the state-of-the-art facility and public safety building located feet away gives employees and residents alike one of the finest facilities in Massachusetts to conduct the business of town government. What some residents might not know is that more than a century ago, Plainville did not have need for a town hall, as it was once part of a neighboring community.
You would find that this was originally part of Rentham, and prior to that, the area known as Wallamalapog was particularly a sort of a royal hunting ground for the Wampanoag Indian chiefs, Massasoit and his son, King Philip. Did a lot of personal hunting here. We're here in this area fairly frequently.
The new building at 190 South Street is at least the fourth town hall. That first center of government shared space with another department, although the details aren't certain.
We believe it was in the elementary schools. They would be built a little later after 1905, and they were actually across the street from the Humphrey House, so on South Street and School Street. They shared the building with the elementary schools. We know up until about 1921 they were there, because a portion of it actually caught fire in 1921 and almost burned down to the ground.
Before moving to 190 South Street, Town Hall was located in the same building for 78 years.
In 1927, the library, which was also moving into the elementary school, moved to the brick house down the street, and the town offices followed.
As the town's population grew, so did the need for space to conduct town business, especially when that business necessitates discussions of a private nature.
It's true. And I think that's very evident, especially in the treasurer's office and the assessor's office and the Board of Health. So those are, the treasurer's office and the Board of Assessors. People are coming in to discuss their taxes, not necessarily something that they want to share with the entire world. When someone coming into the treasurer's office may be having difficulty paying their taxes, and there's no confidential place for them to sit down with the treasurer collector to work out a payment schedule. There's no confidential space for someone to come in and talk about the value of their home. There's no confidential space for someone to come in and talk to the health agent if they have a health issue or they have a concern. They're literally standing in the hallway and the public is passing.
But there's really no space for us to go sit and talk. Even if I had somebody, coming in with a housing complaint, there's no area where I could actually bring them to speak, confidently about some situations, whether it's housing issues or, they got sick at a restaurant. There's no private area.
When people come in now, if they want to file a marriage intention, they have to be together, so I'll have two people at that little door. And someone else might come in and they'll need a dog license or something, and there's no privacy for the people.
We try to work it out no matter what. As you can see, we have no privacy here. People just come waltzing right in anytime they want without knocking. So it's hard to have conversations sometimes, but we manage to get by, and we.
Privacy was also a concern for town employees.
It can be tough, especially on the treasurer's side, when one of the employees will come in and have personal questions or things to do with their health insurance. Having that privacy, is important, and we just don't have it in this space right now.
In addition to privacy, mold, mice, and let's not forget raw sewage, the former town hall also lacked adequate space.
The public itself isn't served well in this building. We don't have a meeting room, so we can't have our public meetings here. And even just serving the customers in general has become a challenge based on the layout. And we don't have appropriate archive space or record space. And then there are all the other challenges that have to do with the building and the heating and the envelope system and just the building in general. So
it's very difficult to do plan review in a confined space. I have to get up and keep moving from my desk and then clearing off the plans off of that table to meet with people that come in. So they keep getting shuffled back and forth. You can't leave anything out to work on it. It's got to be put away at all times. So it's difficult at best here.
We'll have an area for like when our auditors come in. Right now, one will sit in this office, one will sit in someone else's office. Whatever open space we have, that'll help us. Functional, instead of having to dig through everything and move boxes, I'll be able to open up a file and grab what I need.
When we have absentee voting, trying to have space for someone to come in and mark a ballot and have privacy, it's tough. It's tough with the early voting that we've had twice. The town administrator had to give up her office the last time for me to be able to set up in there. And, everyone's very accommodating in the town hall for when we have situations like that, but not the best working conditions.
Well, we needed storage. So as you can see, there's no place to put anything here. And I don't know if you're going to pan this area or not, but it's a total mess. And when I first got here, we didn't have any file cabinets. So we scavenged those from Plainville Machine when they closed up. We went and took those, so we had someplace to put something, but everything was just scattered on chairs. We had 100 chairs up here from the old auditorium. Each chair was a file cabinet, and we just piled stuff up. So at the new town hall, we'll have a storage area for building inspector, a storage area for planning, and then we'll have the attic space upstairs in the cages where we can put the archived information if we need it.
I think we have a lot of space constraints. We can't lay out plans to review septic systems or new food establishments, so definitely space is an issue, I would say. Deb's managed to kind of make a Tetris game out of it. So usually when something comes in, we're able to put it away, but it's tight.
In accounting, we're just expanding. Right now, it's myself, and then we have a part-time town accountant. Town accountant. And she, we try to work in here sometimes, but there's just not enough room for the two of us. Eventually, the town will probably have to go to a full-time accountant. We're just getting bigger, the town itself, and what's required of us from the Department of Revenue. And
when we have town meeting, after town meeting, I have to come back and certify that, get bylaws ready to send to the Attorney General's office, and it's going to be wonderful to have a place where I can go in and be able to do that. Right now in this office, people are coming to the door, so you're always interrupted and stuff. So it'll be nice to be able to concentrate on important things like that.
As the administrative assistant in the building department, Maggie Clark's insight was vital in her role as the chair of the town's permanent building committee.
I think working in this building, it's quite obvious what the deficiencies are. We lack storage, we lack space, we lack systems, we lack heat oftentimes. So we knew, I think both us in Town Hall and the police and fire really knew what we needed in a building. We needed adequate storage, adequate facilities, handicap accessibility, things that we really lack now that we wanted to bring into the new buildings. And not just to satisfy our needs for today, but we continually referred to these buildings as 50-year buildings. We attempted to kind of hit the sweet spot between building for today and not overbuilding, making something that's really huge and grandiose, but allowing ourselves enough room to grow that we can be satisfied with those buildings without having to think about it again for at least 50 years.
Treasurer-collector Patrick McIntyre believes residents will see the impact to that foresight immediately.
Here, yes. There's an ample amount of space, and if there is a line, there are two benches opposite the town clerk's office so people can sit down, especially if somebody has small children. They can sit down there while their parents or whomever is making a transaction at our window.
Space wasn't the only concern for the new town hall. A layout to make it easier for residents and anyone doing business with the town was a top priority.
I think that we we did a pretty good job, I hope, of really looking at which departments interface with which departments frequently, situating them in such a way that they're near each other. And like you said, the planning department and the building department in the new building will be right next to each other, so they can work together quite easily. They have a shared space in the middle for plans to be spread out and things of that nature, sharing a secretary in the middle. So yeah, we did try to think that way.
We'll have all the land departments consolidated at the new town hall, and then we'll have an office in the back, and we'll have a small conference room that the building inspector and I can share.
The new town hall is also able to handle the technology and accessibility demands unimaginable when the former town hall was built.
Well, from a technical standpoint, right now we don't have the technology to take debit and credit cards at the counter. There's also a handicap spot, so if anybody comes in with a wheelchair, they'll be able to just wheel right up to our counter. There's going to be a self-service point-of-sale terminal at the counter so people can do their credit and debit transactions.
Technology was an even bigger priority in the design of the public safety building, which not only houses the town's police and fire departments, but all of their equipment as well.
As you came into our lobby area, that is our communication center for both departments. We are supposed to meet certain standards, security standards, and we can't meet them for the communication center. It's not what we call a secure center. Years ago we had 4 cells. We now have 2. We turned 2 cells, one being the sergeant's office, the other being right across the hallway here, which was our juvenile cell. We had to use that for our radio and computer systems, which again, when this building was built, nobody had computers, and certainly not the type that we have today with the extensive servers that are needed for the systems.
Improved technology was a must for the fire department. So were living quarters for firefighters on a 24-hour shift, a major issue at the former station.
And it was never designed to be a fire station in the first place. It was a trucking company. So trying to make a trucking company building work as a fire or police station is very difficult. And then when you add on the fact that the last time it was really renovated was 1973, the systems are pretty old, they're tired, so we run into a lot of problems with the building maintenance-wise. And then when you add on the fact that we've gotten much busier in recent time, as you know, the Plainville's expanded quite a bit. We no longer have enough room for everything we need to do, and we've had to resort to renting space across the street just to keep our trucks inside.
You heard that right. At the time of our interview with Chief Alexander, the former station required firefighters to cross Route 1A in order to get to some of their trucks, a waste of precious seconds and minutes when property and lives are on the line.
We do. We have to go across the street. There's a flashing light that we can turn on that people sometimes stop for, sometimes we don't. South Street's busy. It's dangerous. And then we often have to move 2 or 3 trucks out of the way to get the truck we want out because the room's not there to have them all set up to come out immediately. So if we want one particular truck that we need for a call, it could be blocked in by up to 3 trucks to get it out. So we have to pull all those trucks out just to get that one truck out.
It's not a stretch to say that the new public safety building might help save a life.
Well, the basic example of that would be our tanker truck, which is the truck that carries a lot of water for areas without fire hydrants. Right now, it takes many minutes to get that truck out because we have to go across the street. We have to get a couple of trucks out of the way. It takes time. And when you're in an area with no fire hydrants, that really is your fire hydrant. It's water on wheels. And without it, we don't have enough water to do what we need to do. So this is going to change how we respond overnight.
The men and women of the Plainville Police Department had their own issues.
We simply ran out of room for the officers to have a locker. And the female and the males used to have to dress together in the locker room. We had a little bulletin board that they could go behind in a corner and get dressed. So not a very good situation. So we knocked a hole in the side of the wall, attached a trailer, an office trailer that we rent, and we're able to divide the male and the female locker room. So that's what they use. Goal-wise, I'd like to see the department become accredited someday. And this building doesn't meet any accreditation standards, so we couldn't even begin the process with the hope of becoming accredited because we just can't meet any of the standards. The new building, that's a different story. We should be able to meet all the standards in the new public safety facilities. So,
Chief Allred took us through the area in the new building most residents will see.
well, first we have an actual lobby, which is unique. So more than 2 or 3 people can actually stand in there, and that's unique. When you walk in, straight ahead would be the communication center. So as you walk in, probably your eyes would go right to that window, which is a good thing, and where we would have personnel behind it. The communication center is now armored, what we call armored. So it's bullet resistant, the whole lobby. It's just something today that's considered a standard, especially for your communication center, which you wouldn't want to lose in a critical incident if something happened over there.
Fire Chief Alexander took us through the area of the building his department occupies.
One of the mandates that the town really gave the building committee, which I serve on, was to build these buildings so that we can stay in them for a long time, 50 years or more. So we needed to think ahead. So the fire department administratively is mostly built out. So we basically created an office for each current person we have, and I believe there's 2 others that are there for our staff that isn't full-time but do have roles where they need a space. For instance, our safe education, which is the student education in the schools. What they do is they have no space here now. So they have to keep it in their personal lockers and then find the back of a tailgate on a pickup truck or some place to go and put the documents down and work on what they got to do to get ready to go into the schools.
The living area is also a big improvement than the space the department occupied when we met with the chief.
Right now we have no separation for male versus female. We only have 1 bathroom, so there's no separation for that. So it's very difficult. We have 2 women on the fire department, so it's very difficult for them. They're very patient, and they know good things are coming. So we'll have individual bunks, which is what the standard is now. You'll be able to have the separate bathrooms and showers for the respective male and female. And then the living areas will be more conducive to our size. So you'll have rooms that can support not just what we have on shift now, which is 5 per shift, but we had to think along the lines of when we have storm coverage. So when we have storm coverage, a big storm goes through, we might go from 5 to 11 because we don't have the ability to get other firefighters to come back during the storm because it takes too long. So we have to staff up just in case there's a fire or a big incident. And you can't even rely on our mutual aid partners because they're probably going to be just as busy. So what happens with that is we needed 11 spaces to put people when they're here.
Mark Bertonassi is not only the building commissioner and inspector, he was also the town's project manager. He feels the biggest impact the project will make is on public safety.
I think it's just incredibly important, especially for the safety side of police and fire. Police side have lockdown areas that are separated from the rest of the building. A prisoner can't interact with anybody else in that building. They're confined to the cell area. Fire department have better gear washing equipment, better shower facilities for them to wash off after a scene. I think it's incredibly important for them to have this new facility for their personal safeties.
The new building is expected to save money on the cost of repairs.
We're going to be tackling maintenance. We created a maintenance area for our trucks. I was a department mechanic for years, and there are 2 that are on staff that do it part-time. So we're going to be able to take care of our fleet better as a result. We do the best we can now, but for instance, now if a truck breaks down in the bay and won't start, the only way to work on it is to hook chains to it and drag it outside during a snowstorm and get under it then, because we can't get at the engine because the roof's too low, the ceiling's too low in the apparatus bay. You can't open the hood, if you will. Whereas in the new facility, we're going to be able to do that and not be dragging trucks out with chains and working in the snow. And we're going to actually be able to take care of what are possibly the most expensive capital assets the town has, our fire engines. So it's important to take care of those properly, and we'll be able to make those tax dollars go further by prolonging their lives with better maintenance.
Town Administrator Jennifer Thompson explained how the 2 buildings were funded.
Certainly unique, the only one that I'm aware of in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. So it's a $34 million project, and not a dime of it will be built with taxpayer dollars. The money comes from the host community agreement that we get from Plain Ridge Casino having a license in town. So long before I came, the Board of Selectmen and Joe Fernandez, who were the town administrator, who negotiated the host community agreement, put the payments that they receive from the host community agreement into a capital stabilization fund so that it could be used for capital projects such as this. So the debt and interest on the project itself gets paid right from the gaming money. So again, it's a win-win for the town, and it's pretty exciting because I think it's the only one I've ever heard of being done that way.
Thompson addressed those in town who would have preferred the Plain Ridge money be used instead to reduce property taxes.
So that's a great question. So Plain Ridge does pay taxes, so that's a whole separate, this is separate from the taxes that they pay. So they already contribute, they're the largest commercial taxpayer in town, so they already contribute to the tax base. But your question is a very good question because the town would have had to have done this anyway, not just for the inconveniences or the struggle that employees have being in these buildings, but the buildings are not ADA accessible, which is an issue. At the police and fire departments, we don't have any gender separation, which is an issue. You can't have men and women sharing locker rooms. And the spaces are just not adequate anymore to function in terms of government and in terms of public safety. So the issues are something that would have had to be addressed regardless, and it would have had to been done by a debt exclusion, which would have raised taxes. So I think you could make the argument that your taxes weren't raised to do those buildings, so in a sense you did get a break on the taxes in that respect.
It's important to note that the town saved money by having building commissioner Mark Bertonassi as the project manager. They also saved money when Stanley Wydak stepped up as the assistant owner's project manager. The longtime resident and now selectman is especially proud.
It's magnificent. I guess that's the word you would use. Being a lifelong resident of Plainville, I am used to the old fire station. But at this point, it's something Plainville should be very, very proud of. And it's not built for today, and it's not built for tomorrow, but it's built for a 50-year lifespan.
Wydak was asked if he ever thought Plainville would have a town hall like the one they have now.
To be honest, no. To be honest, no. And I have to attribute that to some of the people that we used to have in government, like the Joe Fernandez, the Neds, that looked forward to getting something good for Plainville. And as everybody knows in town, my mother lives maybe one of the closest houses to the racetrack, and we had no objections to that. And the racetrack has been very, very good to Plainville because it's allowed the townspeople to have these two buildings without massive overrides like they have in other communities.
Wydak is especially proud of the new meeting room selectmen and other town boards will call home.
At this point, I'm very, very excited about this meeting room because we used to have meeting rooms in the selectman's office, and if you didn't get there for the first 7 chairs, you were out in the hall. And if you didn't get there by the 20th person, you were outside. So that's the way it was before.
Wydak took his owner's project manager responsibilities seriously.
There's been times when I've been here at 6:30 in the morning, and there's been times I've been here at 9 o'clock at night to check on it at Sundays, Saturdays. I am fortunate that I live down the road, so I can keep an eye on it. I kind of accepted this as one of my pet projects, as if I was building it.
Town Clerk Ellen Robertson thinks residents who have not yet seen the inside of the buildings will be happy.
I think they'll be pleased. Hopefully they'll be happy for us to be able to be in a nice building like that. And it's just gorgeous. You can't really wrap your head around it when you're sitting in here, and then you go in there and see how lovely it is.
How does she describe the new town hall?
Heaven.
honestly, this is going to sound really corny, but it's been a fantastic experience for me. I've learned so much, and it has been really interesting to be involved with something from the very beginning, to see it all the way through to completion. It's been very rewarding, and I do look forward to seeing those buildings there for years to come.
The only thing I asked for was not to be next to the bathrooms again. And guess where my office is? Right across from the bathrooms.
You're on.